It is 6:55, and I'm going to go ahead and call the Board of Finance meeting to order, and we'll go ahead and begin with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to begin with agenda item number 1 with the election of officers, the election of the president and the secretary. So I'd like to request nominations for officers of the Board of Finance at this time.
I move or I'd like to nominate Terry for president.
Second that nomination? How's that work?
That's good.
I'll second his nomination. Or do we all,
And I'll move that the nomination to be closed.
Okay, so I have a first or a recommendation by Steve, a second by Wes to nominate Terry as the president of the Finance Board. So any discussion? All in favor?
she does a great job.
She does, and I totally ruin this part every year, so I'm obviously not the president of the board. So at this time, Terry, thank you for accepting that. At this time, I would also like nominations for the officer of secretary.
I move that we nominate Steve as secretary.
Second.
I have a motion made by Terry and a second by Ken to nominate Steve as secretary of the Board of Finance.
I'll move the nomination to be closed.
Second.
Well, we got to vote on him first.
All in favor?
Well, you can't handle it all at once.
All right, 5-0. All right. Mr. McFarland, I would ask you at this time to please review the investment report and discuss any old outstanding checks.
Old outstanding check, we do not have any this year. We're supposed to receipt back in any check that's older than 2 years after the December 31st of the year it was written. If you remember, we changed banks about a year and a half ago, and when we closed the account that we were with, we went ahead and voided any outstanding checks there. As far as the investment report goes, you have that sheet in front of you. The top part just is our current checking account with First Source and TCU. You can see there's the December 31st, 2019 balances there, so you can compare to the December 31st, 2020. You'll see a decrease there. That main justification behind that is in 2019 we had a considerable amount of the bond left, so that inflated our cash balance there. And then the middle section is the CDs that we had last year and this year. Last year we had $1.75 million. This year we're at $2 million of CDs. You can see the interest rates there beside them have taken a tumble, and so that's going to affect our revenue coming in for 2020 and for the foreseeable future. At the very bottom chart is interest the last 5 years, kind of on a roller coaster there. We've climbed from back in 2016 to $5,500 in interest, peaked in 2019 at almost $102,000. This current year, this past year, we received $55,000 in interest. And based on those CDs that we currently are holding, and the interest rate that we're getting on our checking account, we're looking at about $8,300 in interest for 2021. So.
Any questions at this time?
We need to approve this formally. So
Yes.
I move we approve this report as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Steve, a second by Terry to report the investment report. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. I move at this time that we move towards adjournment. There were
Yes,
none.
there aren't any.
It is 7 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead, and I would like to call the Board of Reorganization session to order. Agenda item number 1, I want to congratulate our appointments of Wes Redinger and Kevin Boyer to the board. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Tom McFarland to give the oath of office.
Okay, if you will repeat after me, Kevin and Wes.
Should we stand?
Yeah, I should stand.
I think we have to stand.
And
I think I stood one other time.
I state your name,
I, Wes Redinger,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana
and the
the Constitution of the State of Indiana
and the laws of the United States
and
the laws of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties
I will faithfully execute the duties
of my office as a member
of my office
as a member
of this governing body,
of this governing body,
so help me God.
so help me God.
You guys will sign that, and I will notarize it and get it to the clerk.
Thank you, Tommy.
Congratulations, Wes
the
and
same thing I
Kevin,
got here.
obviously done a wonderful job leading up to this point, and obviously you received the recognition from our community to continue that service, so thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, which is the election of officers. And what I would like to do at this time is open the recommendations or nominations up for president of the board. And then I will gladly turn the rest of the meeting over to this individual.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Ken and a second by Steve to nominate Terry Barnhart as the president of the Triton Board of Trustees. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, I would like to thank Terry for accepting that and allow her to go ahead and move forward with the remainder of the agenda.
Thank you. I'll open for nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Kevin Boyer.
Second?
Been moved by Steve, seconded by Wes. All in, or any discussion? Any other nominations?
Did you want it really bad?
All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. I'll entertain motions for secretary.
I nominate Steve.
Second?
Been moved by Ken, seconded by Wes. Any discussion? Any other nominations?
You do a great job too.
All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, the meeting date, time, and location. Currently, it's the second Monday of each month at 7 p.m. It says in the administration building, but because of COVID, we're here to be socially distant. So hopefully, in the near future, we can get back to being normal, but until then, probably the meetings will be held here. Does anyone have conflicts? Kevin, you don't have your conflict in December any longer?
Nope.
Okay.
I got rid of that. Do we need to move? So I move we have our meeting second Monday of each month at 7 p.m. in the administration building, but that's being changed to here in the library for social distancing for the time being. Give it to Ken.
Been moved by Steve, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the appointments. Currently, our treasurer is Tom McFarland, and our attorney is Tim Shelley.
Tim Shelley.
We'll group that one together, and then we'll go on to the others.
I'll make that motion.
Okay?
I'll second that.
Been moved by Kevin, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Currently, ISBA delegate legislative liaison is Mr. Stichter. if we want to continue that way, unless anybody has an objection to that or would like to take that on.
I move Steve still does that.
Second. Thanks, Wes.
Been moved by, wait, who?
Wes
Wes.
made the motion, I seconded.
Okay, that's what I thought. Wes and Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Student Handbook Committee representative in the past, or at least last year, was Mr. Redinger.
Make a motion to have one remain.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Ken, seconded by Steve. Any discussion?
Doing a good job, Wes.
All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
The Textbook Adoption Committee representative, as well as the Board Policy representative, last year was Mrs. Barnhart.
And I move that we have Terry do both of those again if she's willing.
I can do that.
Second.
Been moved by Steve,
Third.
seconded by Kevin. Any discussion unless someone else wants that position? All right, all in
If you're
favor?
willing. I heard you say you'd do it.
Yeah, you meet the major criteria for that one. Willing to do
Willingness.
it.
All righty. Moving on to agenda 5.
Agenda item number 5 is board salaries. Currently, the board salary is $1,850 per year. The max on that is $2,000. So at this point in time, I leave that up to discussion. As far as, I guess I'd recommend that it's $1,850 unless there's further discussion on that.
I'll move that it would remain the same. I'll second that.
And also, if you decide to give it back to the school, there's a little waiver form that Tom has given us for the evening. So any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes.
In front of you, you also have a conflict of interest form. This is for all board members. This is standard procedure each year. Administrators will sign the form also. So just to make sure that we're not getting undue gain by working at the school corporation or being employed by the corporation. So all administrators and all board members sign that each year.
All right, if there's no other business, we will move to adjourn at 7:08. And we'll move on to our regular session. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll move on to the consensus agenda.
I'm going to move that we approve the vouchers of 12/31 and 1/11, payrolls 25, 26, and 26A. Those total $1,250,449.92, plus the minutes of our last meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Steve, seconded by Wes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. On to personnel. Oh, wait,
Patrons.
patrons' comments. Do we have any posts, Orion?
Give me
I don't see any at this
none
time.
on YouTube.
No?
I don't see any at this time.
Okay, we'll move on to personnel.
There are no personnel items at this time. In that personnel item, I guess I would like to go ahead and just, last board meeting, we accepted the resignation of Mason McIntyre for athletic director, obviously moving on to a passion of his. And I just want to, after discussion with the board, with our finance team, with Mr. McCann, we will be posting the athletic director, assistant principal position coming up in January. So that would be posted on our website, and we will make people that are interested in that aware of that, and or would appreciate any inquiries on that, any questions as far as that's concerned. So we will be posting that coming up in the next couple of weeks with a timeline of hoping to, by the end of February, having a really good pool, doing our interviews by the end of February, possibly naming somebody shortly after spring break so they have plenty of time to get with Mason and kind of go through some of the routines and the list of duties and those type of things. So we are definitely looking for 2 qualifications there. Obviously somebody that's interested in providing assistance when it comes to the assistant principal position that is a licensed administrator and or willing to work towards that, and or somebody who has a passion to continue our outstanding tradition of excellence in our athletics.
Jeremy, is it your goal to have something we can approve on the 8th of March for our board meeting, or probably more the 12th of April?
We will do our best on that. Yes, I would like to say that's our timeline. That's a little fluid right now because we will be coming up with a job description to make sure that all of that is laid out for them. But yes, I would love to think that we could be very, very close. It may be more realistic to say our April board meeting would likely be the recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We need to approve the second reading and adopt the policy policy of 9. Is that right?
Title IX, as we talked a little bit last board meeting, it's just simply when it comes to sexual harassment, we need to make sure that we're not just standing back and not taking a stance on that. So coming up on Wednesday, I'm going to be meeting with our administrative staff and we're going to be assigning those roles. So our policy is in the process of being read. We've reviewed that with Ryan Snoddy and Neola, and we will do our third reading and finally adopt that next month. So this is just I recommend the approval of the second reading of the adoption of our Title IX policy.
Okay.
So moved. Second.
The moved by Kevin, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Moving along to other business.
All right, I recommend the approval. I'll go ahead and do the first three here. Approve the transfer of funds from the education fund to the operation fund, and approve the transfer to the rainy day fund resolution. Also, the appropriation transfers, and those are all, Tom, I don't know if you want to say anything in particular about those.
The appropriation transfers, it's just line items in the budget that we may have overspent. Just moving those appropriations to line items that we underspent and zeroing everything out. It all balances out to zero at the end.
I'll make the single motion for those 3 items.
Second.
Been motion by Kevin, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
The next item, I would recommend the approval of the savings account with TCU that.
We can remove that off the agenda.
Okay.
That might have been last January.
Okay. All right. Because I was noticing that.
We don't have any savings anymore? Is that what you're saying, Tommy?
Okay. Forget that. So we'll move on to approve the provision quote for the camera system for the 2 new buses. You can see the amount is $7,074. And also, we'll talk about the next agenda item by itself. So that's a little bit more clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I move we approve that quote, and so we can get that when we get our buses.
Do they know when they might have that in, the cameras? No?
The buses won't be until July, August.
Okay.
They're hoping to have them by the beginning of the school year.
Okay.
Second.
The moved by Steve, seconded by Wes. Any other discussion? All approval? Motion passes 5-0. All righty.
Okay, this item needs a little bit more explanation, and please know our community, we will be explaining that in detail, but I'm going to do the same thing at this meeting as well. At the end of November, I believe it was November 24th, the State Board of Education actually approved a waiver request that Triton School Corporation put in to align with, very similar to what we have been the last few years, which allows us, that was a performance standard designation that allowed us to count our school year based on hours instead of the typical 180 days. What this does is it allows us to be a little bit more flexible. We have approximately 4,000, 5,000 more hours, more minutes.
Minutes,
Once again,
minutes,
I did it again,
minutes.
Steve. More minutes than more than the minimum minutes of the year. So it actually allows us a little bit of flexibility to, especially in this time of COVID, especially in this time of just a extremely difficult first semester to put in some makeup days that we actually originally had to take out because of the late start, which was recommended by the Marshall County and Kosciuszko County Health Departments at the time. So my recommendation is that we would approve the second semester calendar makeup days. And just to clarify, one of those days is January 29th. And we actually took that date from the April 2nd date that was on our original calendar, simply because that was 3 days after we returned from spring break. So it doesn't make a lot of sense that we would go on a week and a half spring break and then 3 days later come back and have a Friday off. So what I did is I removed that date from that Good Friday and placed it in January. We all know that January to spring break is a large time of no breaks and those type of things. So knowing what first semester was like, knowing that we're going to still deal with some of the COVID pandemic issues, we really felt like it was necessary for our teachers' sake to put a couple of those days in there as respite for both our teachers and students, for planning, for just catching up and or just a rest if necessary. So we understand social, emotional things are going on, and we just want to continue to put a little bit of light at the end of each tunnel. So my recommendation would be for the second semester calendar that we put back in our makeup days for January 29th, for February 15th, which is President's Day, and April 23rd.
Second.
It's been moved by Ken, seconded by Wes. Any other discussion?
I like that idea. I really do. Thanks for thinking about that and thinking of our staff.
Absolutely. And just so we are aware, that is something that I bring to discussion, corporation discussion, so that has been discussed with our teachers. We talked about a couple different options as it relates to when the best timing was, and if you look at that on the calendar, it falls approximately 3 to 4.5 weeks at a time. So we felt like it was placed well into the calendar for their sake.
Okay. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. On to superintendent's reports.
All right, as is typical, I'm just going to work through our core values. So continuous improvement, as we explained through communication with our staff and social media outlets last week. Triton seeks to continuously improve in all areas in the new calendar year. Our theme for this year, I guess it's not a corporation theme, but I shared the theme using John Gordon's one word for the year, that we would simply try to continue to be better. First of all, partially because we hope that 2021 is better, but also just a commitment to our community, our scholars, our staff, that we want to continue to strive to improve in all areas. We have managed a successful first semester and will commit to continue to get better at relationship building, communication, service, sportsmanship, instruction, and the list goes on. So action plans, accountability, professional development, and an intentional effort to improve our all-around service is our goal. Shared leadership, I want to thank Melissa LaSure for her time and effort that she gave to provide the Triton School Corporation teaching staff and non-certified staff a timely reminder of the need for research-based instruction, even in the midst of a mixture of instructional methods. Executing remote teaching from Christina Smeckens, and Smeckens Education was used to marry the digital components of research-based lessons that could also very easily be used in in-person instruction. The focus of the first lesson was harnessing the power of whole group instruction, being the coach in the room, but also remembering to support our scholars in the I do, we do, you do process. Social responsibility, I want to thank Hadassah Chupp for continuing to serve on the board, town council, and represent Triton School Corporation student body in those meetings. We will begin the process of appointing a new member in the coming weeks. According to Mr. Young, Hadassah has agreed to stay to partner with and mentor the new delegate. So I think if you guys remember last year, we were planning on switching those delegates around Christmas time, so that second half of the senior year wasn't overbearing and extra responsibilities. Hadassah said she's enjoying that. She feels like it's productive, and quite frankly, her experience has been maybe not as great as she would have hoped, just because of all the restrictions. But we do have some great plans, and she's given us some outstanding feedback of how we can continue to improve that for our town council. Accountability, I want to thank our community for continuing to be a partner in mitigating the spread of the current virus. The governor explained the next round of vaccines would be set aside for those that are our most vulnerable to the virus, our aging population. We are told from health department that educators and school officials are said to be possibly in the next round of vaccines. So we'll continue to keep an eye out on that, but obviously the sooner we have that opportunity, whether somebody chooses to or not, but if the opportunity is given, obviously that's going to be, once again, light at the end of the tunnel for hoping a lot of this comes to an end in 2021. High expectations. I congratulated Maddie Richardson today on receiving the honor of being named the Marshall County runner-up for the Lilly Scholarship. Bless her heart, Maddie Richardson got second place. And in this case, it means you either get college paid for or you don't get college paid for. But the fact is that she was part of that conversation. She was one of 3 students that I think went to the final round out of, I think, 30, mid-30s. 31. So 31 individuals who actually applied, and she received second. So she's still holding hope that the Lilly Scholar will choose to go out of state for their education. But she did express just her heartfelt thanks and congratulations to that individual. But then also just the accomplishments that she's done. The biggest one I see is the 400 hours of community service. She loves her community, and she has done a lot to help our community. She has a passion for Triton School Corporation, and just a sweetheart. She is planning on attending either Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame, or Grace College to study accounting. So she's going to be successful, and I think we're just very, very proud of her. And I've expressed that to her. Evidence-based decision-making, the start of this year has been nothing short of challenging for everyone. And I did explain, talking a little bit about the second semester calendar, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in this evidence-based decision-making. Triton School Corporation was fortunate enough to receive a waiver of our 180-day requirement, similar to the performance standard designation we have received in the past. This allows us to meet accountability expectations with hours instead of the typical 180 mandated days. Due to the fact that our minutes exceed the state's expectations by over 5,000 minutes, we are able to use a little more flexibility when we have a weather event or a mandatory shutdown. This is why I was able to make the recommendation to put days back into the calendar as possible makeup days or days off, whichever is needed most at the time of the designated day. So just keep in mind, if we would have a shutdown or we would have a large weather event, there is a possibility that we would use those for makeup days. But my intention right now is that those days are set aside for, like I said, respite, catch up, and planning for our teachers. So we will recommend otherwise if winter hits us hard in February or the end of January. And last but not least, alignment, discussion, leadership, and principals meetings take place every month, and we continue to work together to build a high-performing team, communicating what is on our department's agenda in each area. So that's teachers, maintenance, transportation, food service, technology, budget. These reports will be sent to the board as communicated last week, starting on Wednesday, so each of you are up to date on what is transpiring in each of these areas, giving each of you the opportunity to seek information and clarification when and if needed. So that's all I have for my report at this time. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer any of those.
All right. We'll move on to patrons' comments.
Could you repeat the board, the reorganization again for the reporter?
Oh.
Who was elected? The elected.
We will have Terry Barnhart will be the president. The vice president will be Kevin Boyer, and the secretary will be Steve Stichter. And Ms. Carroll, I will be more than happy to send all of that information to you electronically tomorrow.
Are there any other questions? No? All right, we'll move on to building reports. Mrs. Cook?
All right. Well, first of all, as Mr. Riffle said, I feel like since we met last time that we have successfully completed one semester of in-person instruction at the elementary. And I'd just like to say kudos to all the staff for their hard work and flexibility. They had to change routines and how they teach. And it was not easy. And also kudos to parents for their understanding during times of quarantine. I talked to many parents when those, hard conversations, and I felt like everybody was pretty understanding and took it pretty well. And that helps us immensely as well. We had a total of 10 students during that time, during the first semester, who tested positive, and we did contact tracing and quarantining accordingly. We are now down to 8 virtual students, and currently we have 8 students on quarantine due to exposure to positive cases at home. So, and as of tomorrow, we only have 1 staff member on quarantine. So it's a good day in the neighborhood so far. When we started in the fall, after having been off school for 5 months, our beginning of the year reading data was a little bit lower than normal, but not as bad as we thought that it might be. However, when we took a look at our middle of year data in December, we did not show as much growth as in past years. And possible factors that we discussed could have been attendance, because we know that attendance has been, not as good as in the past, both on the student level because of quarantines and illnesses, but also on the staff side as well. We had a lot of subs in our building last semester. And thanks to them as well. I'm not saying anything bad, but when instruction doesn't go as normal, and that could also affect some of our data. Another thing we talked about was this was our first year with a new reading series. Teachers are still getting used to it, iron out some of the kinks, seeing how it works for us. And another thing was lack of small group instruction, which we put on hold for the first semester due to COVID. We talked about putting that strategy back in place for our teachers this semester, but in a safe, intentional way that hopefully would not result in increased quarantines. So that's the tricky part. We wanted to see, waiting for a couple of weeks back to determine what the climate and make sure that the climate is acceptable, and then we'll brainstorm some of our logistics and hopefully get that back into place and get some of those scores up and get students achieving better for the second half of the school year. Like Mr. Riffle said, January 4th, we returned to the building and we worked on the executing remote teaching, which was ways that we can have effective whole group instruction, whether we're in person or virtual, and what we really need to actually instruct. There are a lot of things we do whole group, but talking about what does instruction look and the hows and whys of that for our students, I think is really important to revisit. We have then also returned to having students travel to library, computers, and art by maintaining 6-foot distancing in all locations so that we don't add to additional locations that require contact tracing. Students are enjoying being able to leave their classrooms, and I got to witness some third graders coming back into the art room for the first time since last March. And I got to tell you, they were joyful. They were pretty excited about that. You wouldn't think it's a big deal, but it really is. It actually allows for them to get up and move about the building a little bit more instead of staying in their homerooms. It also allows the teachers to have some alone time in their room during their prep and actually use it for a prep rather than having to relocate somewhere else. And it lets Mrs. Bulis, Mrs. Schaefer, and Mrs. McFarland better utilize their awesome facilities and equipment that are part of their rooms. We hope to add music to that list by the end of the month, and we're just kind of phasing that in. Last semester, Ms. Aldifer, with the help of Orion Lemler, put together 2 digital music programs showcasing students in grades 2, 4, and 5. Digital programs are right now planned for this semester unless it's safe to do a live performance with an audience. I appreciate them taking the time to do this because music is kind of a performance art, and so it's really kind of nice for them to get to perform for someone, even if it is a digital audience instead of live. Discussions are happening regarding special events such as our health fair, 50s Day, All School Field Day, so that we can offer students fun opportunities that can realistically operate safely, regardless of whatever COVID guidelines are in place. So some discussions, some creativity we're working out there so that we can still offer some of those kinds of things in the spring. Next week, WIDA starts. Mr. Adam Heckman would be administering those, pulling students for those. Those are the assessments that measure the growth of our English language learners. And that takes about 3 to 4 weeks, and it will start Monday. We're also beginning to prepare for spring assessments this month by updating our students who require accommodations, making sure all of those are in place, certifying our teachers to administer assessments, and we'll be conducting a statewide readiness test on January 27th to test our devices and infrastructure that will be used when we administer iRead 3 and iLearn. Anything else? Any questions?
Thank you. Just some updates at the junior senior high school. As of right now, we have 19 students that are virtual students, and those are the students that the student and the parents have made the decision that that's how they're going to conduct business right now. We have 34 students that are temporarily virtual due to quarantine. So again, 19 that are virtual and 34 that are virtual due to quarantine. So similar to what Ms. Cook said, starting second semester right now, just kind of a recap of semester one is definitely a challenge, but I think it was successful given the situation we were in, and I think that success has a lot to do with just our staff and the time, the work, the effort that they put into that semester. Also our students, I think we got to see a lot of resilience on our students' behalf. And then just a lot of cooperation from our parents. I think just understanding the situation we were in and just being flexible and working through the situation with us. So just a lot of people coming together to make a bad situation a lot better. So a lot of appreciation there. As far as coming back second semester, overall so far, our return back has been positive. Report cards for first semester went out on Thursday of last week, and right now we are working with students to make up maybe any final exams, because we did have quite a few students that were quarantined during final exam week, so that definitely makes it difficult for students to finish final exams. So last week, this week, that's one thing we've been trying to do is get kids caught up on their final exams and any work they might have missed during their quarantine now that they're back. So that's something we're working on this week to wrap up. Some additional COVID-19 precautions made since we've been back. I'd say the biggest change we've made is during our lunchtime is we've got students, just like we did first semester, spread out between the upper deck of the gym and the cafeteria, but we've really tried to spread them out even further, less students at one single table. That way, if we do have to do contact tracing, it's not 5 or 6 kids to a table, it might be 2 or 3. So we've just tried to spread kids out more and hopefully have less of an impact if and when we do need to contact trace. Just to tell you a little bit about after-school study tables, that's something that we've started up this school year. I appreciate Mr. Riffle just giving us the opportunity to try and do some new things and try things that we think are going to benefit kids, and the after-school study table is one of those things. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify those students that are struggling getting their work done. Maybe they don't have the best place at home or the most ideal situation at home in order to get that work done, and maybe have somebody there that can support them in getting that work done. So we've got, Marion Eversole and Nancy Nordman that are staying a few days a week after school, and they're available for students to, we might identify kids and have them come in and work with the parents so that they stay, but it's also open for students that just make the choice to come in because they want to get that work done. And I think our kids overall, they want to do well, and we have kids that are taking advantage of that. So So far, we've seen success with that, and we hope through second semester we continue to see that success. But we're going to start that back this week for semester 2. Just real quick on scheduling. Scheduling is difficult every year, just making sure we get to meet with every student, but it's going to be just that much more difficult this year with kids being in and out, and hopefully we don't have any more periods of time where we're quarantined. But just to give you a little update on scheduling, so right now all current 7th graders, so going into 8th grade, they have already been scheduled. So we've tried to get a jump on that this year, not knowing what's coming. So in some ways we've done a really good job of that. Our current 8th graders, they're going to be doing a Google Meet with Ms. Arvison coming up here, and they're going to start to build those schedules, and that's going to be in February. 6th grade students, they're going to be scheduling in April when Ms. Arvison returns, and we hope to have that done before, we hope to have all 6th through 8th grade students scheduled by the beginning of May. Grade level presentations for grades 10 through 12 are going to take place next week. Students will have a week of presentations after the presentations to turn in a form that their counselor is going to walk through them with in that presentation to fill out. At that point, Ms. Schilling will meet with students individually to review their 4-year plans and just confirm their course selections. Current juniors will be scheduled first, followed by sophomores, and then finally freshmen. So the goal is to have the 10th through 12th grade completed by spring break. So trying to get ahead of that, just not knowing what's coming, but appreciate our counselors and all the work they're doing as well. So that's what I have for you guys tonight, and entertain any questions you might have. Okay, thank you.
Important, often behind the scenes, but I think it has provided our the individuals that would love to come watch basketball games and events. I just can't thank Orion and his team enough, the Triton Trojan Sports Network. Just in a time where people have to stay home, they have gone out, multiple people, possibly 3 every night. So I just want to thank Orion, Andy, Kenny, Trent, Mr. Adkins. I may be missing some people. Orion, would you recommend anybody else in there?
Margot.
Margot, Terry.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I know Margot. But I guess sometimes we take it for granted. But I have 7th grade boys who play basketball, and they don't understand that somebody else's team may not be on YouTube. It's just,
I know.
It's second nature that they go and they watch it and they can scout teams and all sorts of stuff. I just want to thank you, Orion, for the time and effort that takes. And just, I don't know that we can thank you enough for your team. So I just want to make sure you guys understand you're appreciated, and I think our board appreciates that.
Right.
I know Mr. McIntyre appreciates that, the head of our athletic department. And leading into that, and this is not a ploy, but obviously revenues are low because attendance is low, and that impacts our kids, and that will into the future. And I know that he sent out an email last week with his reminders that we'll be talking about a Back Your Trojans campaign that we're going to start up and just allow people to say, you know what, it means a lot for me to be able to watch a game. My parents who live in Ohio can watch a basketball game that they wouldn't be able to come to because of the current state that we're in, the situation that we're in. And those people that appreciate that and want to give towards that, this would be a great time to do that. And we'll kind of put a little bit of organization behind that, but we'll be coming to you via video here in the coming weeks just to talk a little bit more about that and kind of come up with ways that you can give back and just continue to say thank you to Orion and those that continue to do everything they possibly can to give our kids a great experience, even though we can't have a lot of people in the stands. I think at the John Glenn game the other night, it was so loud and we only had, 4 fans for every kid, and it just it makes us miss, but it will also make us appreciate those times where we can fill the Trojan Trench and just have a great experience. But in the meantime, Triton Trojan Sports Network has just been incredibly important. So thank you.
I agree. Our sports broadcasting is second to none in this area by far. And we are very lucky.
Yep, very fortunate. So.
All right, if there's no other business, we move to adjourn at 7:40. Thank you.